Hello ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 23rd of April 2025. I still see this scar on my head is still doing its still slowly kind of healing a little bit. So I guess it's my Action Man addition to the whole thing. But just a really quite short video because there's lots going on at the moment. We're in the midst of lots of things, but I had something very, very unusual happen after considering I made the last video saying that we're past the wall of water, and that I'd had this whole experience where I split my head open, and in that mist I'd gone into a very odd space, and I realised that why I'd written this book, Laughing Gas. So I'm holding Shanti here on the other hand because she's getting all excited. But when I wrote that, it's just so much detail about all the stuff that's happening now, and I realised that I'd come from that time, that this is kind of me reliving all of this time. That's why I could be so accurate about Britain being used as the Trojan horse to break up the European alliance and feed Europe into a war against Russia, all on the back of a massive kind of like holy war in the Middle East, all about what we see is kind of keeping hegemony, keeping this kind of like economic control that has been had through the US dollar and the kind of like the status quo that we currently understand it, that the world currently understands, and what happens when that comes to an end. And so I predicted all of this whole passage in great detail in Laughing Gas, and I said that when I realised that we'd come to that point that made me write Laughing Gas in the first instance, where I was basically killed by a tsunami and just came back to 2006 with all this knowledge of everything that's happening right now in 2025. And that's why I wrote Laughing Gas. And I always thought it was a vision, and then suddenly I realised I was a bardo. The time travel. These time travel ideas are not science fiction ideas. These are Buddhist and Tibetan ideas that have been passed down the line. And to go into to be a bardo, to travel in the bardo, and to go back in time and go back to experience past lives and correct old mistakes. And I think that's why Buddhism sees time as a kind of perpetual state of change, because possibly it is, as in this very moment that I'm experiencing now, that you're experiencing right now, is an ongoing and changing moment through time itself, that there's an evolving aspect of ourselves in time, of any moment, that might not be the same if you revisit it, and you might live it differently if you relive it, and that we bounce back. And anyway, so I made this video, and I said, you remember in the last video, I believe, what was the I posted it on the 11th of April, and Britain's past the wall of water, but Asteroid Alley lies ahead. And we've been getting quite a few interesting shots. What did we have? That was an old Mr. MBB33 shot. I'm just thinking, what was I looking for? That shot there, which Word of Science posted on the 5th of April. We've been getting quite a lot of green comets, and when you're seeing green, you're seeing something that's not fully burning up in the atmosphere. If that was whizzing by at super high speed, it would, and it went past our atmosphere, it'd be white. But if it goes slowly, because as I showed on, you've just got a little glimpse of what this is all about. But just to give you, just to go to 2011, because this one doesn't go up to 2025, so we'd have to go to 2011. 2014, 2015, around 2015, to see what I mean is where we're at to now. In what will be the same is that 2013, wouldn't it? 2 years after. Where's Earth? There we go. So just there's Earth just coming around here, around the sun here, and you'll see that as we come in, we get these objects coming past us. They're orbiting this object that I'm calling Pluto in this model, and they're coming round, and Pluto's become so close to our sun that the objects are coming in and are coming right round our sun, spinning back round and going to to where they came from. And as they go back, they're going to be running parallel to Earth. And this is I've got a lot of this model is my penultimate model. There's a lot of errors in this. There's a lot of errors in all my models currently, and this is but this is still now probably the more accurate out of all of them, even though the directions are the direction of the sun is about 45 degrees out. The ballpark figures of just understanding this movement, this happens everything that you're seeing here reoccurs every 12 years. There's a 12-year pattern with nearly all of this model, certainly this model, every aspect of this model. There's a 12-year, as in all of the objects take 12 years to come back to where they were 12 years before, and they've all got the kind of number signature of Jupiter. Anyway, so I made the video and I said, look, we're going to be going past this, and I said, it's so different that we're so further ahead in this. My whole understanding of everything that's going on, I realised that this big thing that I've been seeing coming in has already happened. We already came here. We all did it really badly, and we all left, and we're all reliving this. But we're coming in from a higher perspective, and ironically, we're working with the aspects that subverted us last time, and bringing them a lot forward, because on a high level, we've come to realise that which was subverting Earth had been invaded by the same invasive force that is invading us now. That everything that is going on at the moment that is really subverting this planet transcends ego itself. That the ego and humanity have been dealing with the same same problems. And that the ego was the soul group that last went under the wheels of it. And if we go under the wheels of the same thing our egos went under, then we will become like our egos and be used to break other worlds. And so we are the frontier of a much bigger battle. And that's what I brought up a lot in my last video, and I talked about how I was releasing Laughing Gas Now. And if you read Laughing Gas Now, or you listen to the audio version that I'm putting up for free on Patreon, it's going to blow your mind, because I'm nearly 20 years ago, I'm talking about and writing this book that that I released in 2011 that describes everything that's happening right now, and what is inevitably the only thing that can happen. That is that ultimately we're going to wage peace. That's all that can come out of this. That much higher help is coming in, and that everything is so much more highly managed. And then 2 days ago, an asteroid hits the window of my boat and smashes it to smithereens. It was a reinforced window, and it was only a small window. It could have hit the boat in so many places and done so much more damage. It could have hit any of the boats, the fiberglass boats, but the fact it hit, if it is an asteroid, it looks like an asteroid. I don't truly know if it's an asteroid, but my friend thought it was an asteroid and said the bang was just absolutely enormous. And maybe there were other parts of it, because it does look like there's a kind of a crack like there, doesn't it? It does look like there's a bit of an edge, but maybe I just don't know. We didn't find any other bits. We just saw this bit, and it just for me, it was a cosmic message. It was a really just utterly cosmic message, really. It's just like, what that's really telling me is how highly managed this really is, because that was just showing me, well, it's a magnificent message for me, really, because it fits in tightly with the message that I gave in that last video, so much that it's, it's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. It is quite beyond belief. But that was the only bit, and there wasn't shards of it everywhere. It hit, like I say, reinforced glass, and the glass just exploded. It made an almost great bang, and it's real kind of like Didn't damage the carpet. It just sat on the floor. Didn't damage the floor. It's like the window was the perfect force. And remember, I talked about the reason I showed you that aspect there was just so you can understand that they're slow moving. When you've got something, say the Earth's going around the sun and an object's coming straight in towards the sun and it comes past us, we're travelling at 67,000 miles that way. It's probably coming in 67,000 miles at least towards the sun, if not much faster. It's got no ability to drop into Earth's orbit. It's going to get buffed out by kind of like our atmosphere. It's going to scrape down the side, but it's just going too fast to be able to. If it was to try and come through Earth's atmosphere, it would just burn. Whatever it was would just burn up. So we see them white streaking, but you know when it's coming round and we're travelling round and this is coming. It's not cutting across that pathway. I got that completely wrong. It actually clings much more to our sun and keeps going round, and it comes out in what's looking like, I'm guessing, sort of October position, much later in the year, not in July, August, as where I thought it was originally going out. It's just that but yeah, we're getting next to the tail, and of course, and look what's going off again. Kilauea volcano is going absolutely crazy, and this is very significant. You know, it's been pretty much going off steadily now for months and months. But I'm of a mind it's a more complicated eruption that's going on with Kilauea. Certainly Etna's going off. Certainly all the volcanoes are going off. So we've got some crazy storms coming in, guys. Things are about to get absolutely mad. Because whenever there's volcanoes going off, there's crazy floods. Crazy floods. And as well as Kilauea's going off, Etna, and no doubt Stromboli. But I know Etna's really kicking out some eruptions at the moment. And so there's a lot. We're close to something. And you can imagine when I made this model back in 2020, and it was the first time I'd really bought it. It wasn't the first time, but it was the first time I'd bought it all in and showed you 800. But it wasn't the first time I'd shown you 1800 years. But it was the first time I'd built yeah, this was kind of the first. I was edging towards this. I was getting there, wasn't I? But but anyway, I released this specific model in 2020, and I'd noticed that when you got to 2008, just not so much by this model, but I saw it in this model, but I was. And I've got it completely wrong in the new model, which is gutting. Let me just see if I can get to that point where we can just come away. What it was seeing an object. Like here, it looks like it's cutting Earth's past, but in actual fact it's not. What it's doing is still going round our sun, this Hydra. But it gets to, which is better to show in this model. Just come to where Earth is at the 2008. Let's come to 2008. Even though this model isn't really correct, but it is kind of. What happens is that we get to the 21st of June. That's the direction our sun is really moving in, as I'm understanding it. And Earth comes around and cuts across the front. Well, it gets to about April, May, and this is when we had the big Sichuan earthquake happen in 2008. Which I'm of mine was the precursor for the big financial crash, because they knew that something massive was happening, because we had our big object crossing the ecliptic. Anything that's coming round, any of these exoplanets, as I'm understanding, that are coming in and coming round our sun and going back to what they're orbiting. In this model I call it Herculobus. In the last model I call it Pluto. Really, as I often talk about how we reinvent this big blue planet every 84 years, that whether you want to call it Uranus, whether you want to call it Neptune, whether you want to call it Pluto, whether you want to call it Jupiter, whether you want to call it what Carlos Ferrada called it, Herculobus, whether you want to call it Tiamat, whether you want to call it Nibiru, whether you want to call it Planet X, whether you want to call it, there's just been, there's just been so many different names coming from different religions and different histories of this massive object, the blue Kachina, the red Kachina. There's just so many different names for these same objects that are coming, that have been recorded, that affect this planet, that just don't fit into our little heliocentric model, static sun model. And so when you start seeing these, when you start understanding and you keep observing the movements of all these objects, you'll notice that those things that come around the sun, they seem to have their crossing point, where from one point up till they get to this April, May, and they're either, if they're coming in below the ecliptic plane, then they're going to begin. They're going to dive into the northern aspect of the our solar system, and if they come in at this point from the northern aspect, here they're going to drop down into the southern aspect of our solar system, and vice versa, and so we're getting this pattern. And so these, if there's objects that are quite close to us as we're coming round, invariably they're either above or below us, but very rarely do objects come when they cross the ecliptic plane. It's very rare that we're right next to that point, and we are coming up to one of these big crossing points, and which is why I've always called this little point Asteroid Alley, because it's, you remember I know it was much earlier, but you remember when in maybe it's better to use that. Maybe it's better to use the older model. I'm not too sure which one. Probably this is maybe the. What year was it? It was 2013. I got it. Something I just saw it flash in the video then. Oh no, that was that one. I wasn't meaning to. We've got to go to 2013. Maybe I haven't got it in that model. But after this shot here, which is very, very difficult to see, Russian meteors, two, you can't really see them. It's such a bad shot, really, and it could have been jets, except that the person who filmed them was just quite. This was just like they just keep sitting there. They don't move, and the movement is very slow, and it just looked like. But you can't really see them that clear there. But of course, the day that was on the 14th of February, and then on the 15th of February, 2013, you had the big asteroid that came in over Russia and made the enormous bang, and all the windows blew out and everything else like that. Well, of course, that's exactly 12 years ago, so we're coming close to that same tail formation again, 12 years down the line. And so, but this model didn't show it, and then I corrected this model, which was this model, and I made the terrible mistake of putting our sun on the outside of this big cycle, and Herculobus or Pluto or Uranus or Neptune or whatever you want to call the big blue one, the big blue Kachina, I put this on the inside, and it's the other way around. Our sun is on the inside. But I have to make these mistakes, and so it's messed up all of the work that I'd done. And I finally got it together, and I kept finding all these. I was thinking, what have I done wrong? What have I done wrong? And then I realised, and this whole model, like I say before, was much more about focusing, bringing it together, and working with the 21st of June, because that's how we can align with the cosmos. The 21st of June, that's why we come together for the 21st of June and meet up at the Stones. It's not because it's just it's the longest day of the year. The solstice is also because it represents the frontal position of where our sun's going. Our sun is charging forward, and the Earth is coming round, and every time it passes at the 21st of June, it passes the very front of the sun, and then we go round. So we can tap into our cosmic direction, as at the moment most of us have just got the sun in the middle, all the planets going round in a pretty circle, and we have no cosmic direction as to where we're going. In the cosmos, our cosmic grand direction. And so, I built this model, and obviously there's got to be another massive correction. And and that's going to take, because these models take me enormous amounts of time to do, even though they look really quite simple. The mathematics behind them are just absolutely insane, and so I use all these kind of like all these I use a lot of software to try and help me get there. They're not brilliant animations, because at one time we're going to get it right. Oh my god, it's going to make sense. We're going to make all of the sightings that we saw over the years bring together. We're going to be able to take it back and see so much data in the past, like I've shown you over the years as we've built these models and found earthquakes in our past, and the kind of like the understanding of our history through looking at astronomical models and coming out of this ancient 500-year-old ridiculous heliocentric model that we've been living in, which just doesn't make anything work. That just the whole thing is just an astronomical lie. And so much so that now, once you've got space agencies that lie to you, you know, the first thing that happens is you can't believe anything they say. My father used to say to me, son, you can trust a thief, but you can never trust a liar. And it's kind of like these astronomical agencies, they've made their they make their livings out of running a theatre show of lies, and so now we don't trust them. We don't trust any news network. We're in quite a dangerous position, but we're also in quite an empowered position. But we've got to find, if we're not going to trust anything out there, then we have to come to some kind of internal place of direction and empowerment, and cosmic alignment is a fantastic thing for that. And so, you know, I'm going to begin by really pushing out that we really need to align for the 21st of June and to really tap into that old energy now, because we're out of time. We're in a place, we're in a time now that we've never lived before. We're further ahead than we've ever got before. We are in uncharted, very powerful time right now. Amazing time to manifest. And what that meteorite is, just that asteroid or meteorite, whatever you want to call it, is just a cosmic message. You know, that was a message directly from the gods to kind of really show that this is in hand, that we are in the hands of the gods right now. And so, anyway, short message. Thank you so much for following me this far. Don't forget Patreon. I'm nearly halfway through the book now. It's free to listen to Laughing Gas, and I call it One Way to Jupiter on Patreon at the moment. But I'm playing with the names, and that's ultimately it'll probably end up being called Laughing Gas again, because that's what it was called when I wrote it. Well, really, you know, it's Finding Ariel, and the whole thing is telling of the Shakespeare conspiracy theory and this massive search for Ariel, the kind of like this boding spirit that Prospero in the first play in Shakespeare, you know, that Ariel controls, that brings the great tempest, that brings all that have wronged Prospero to the shores of his island. And of course, they all died, and they all transcended to heaven. They all transcended to a higher place in this massive storm, and everything was waiting for them, but on a higher level. They didn't even know they transcended, and so Ariel is the big blue planet that flew by, that inspired the works of Shakespeare, that was obviously the massive great storm that destroyed the Spanish Armada, with the biggest fleet to ever set sail, and Elizabeth I destroyed the entire fleet without a fight, because she knew she couldn't fight at this critical time, that this was all about harmony and peace and connection to this higher place, and to block our souls ascending to a higher place, they plunge us into war. And so sometimes we've got to retreat rather than go to war. Sometimes we've just got to retreat, else we've lost everything. So rather than fight, you know, look what Assad did. We think he upped and run, but we are trying to take a race that know on a spiritual level they cannot go to war at this time, and that they have lost if they go to war. Just by going to war, they've lost. And so they just retreat, and they do everything they can to stop fighting and to not go to war, so their souls can go to a higher place, because they can't go to that higher place if they're at war. And so there's a much, much bigger story going on, and you've got to remember that everyone who's doing everything that's happening now has already done the worst mistakes already. You're coming back here to do it again, to do it differently, to come back from a much higher vibrational place and to do it all again, but with your ego in hand, rather than the ego as a subversive enemy destroying and bringing humanity down. Humanity, our ego is given a much bigger part of our agenda at the moment, but the higher self is flying this whole thing from a higher perspective, trying to kind of like bring about a win-win-win situation where we can all evolve these shortfalls and bring about a future for this planet. And so thank you for your time, thank you for your efforts this so far, and honey in a heart, 1,000 thank yous, and trust it's going to be all right, and time to manifest all that you'd like to bring about now. The gods are going to be with you. Miracles are going to start happening for you now. You're going to become shy. If you're up for connecting with your highest aspect, try to do things that force you to connect you to your highest aspect. Try to be as cosmic as you can. Try to get involved in cosmic process. Think about where you're going to be on the 21st of June and aligning with cosmic energy and cosmic alignment, and coming back to your highest galactic potential, great intelligence, great wisdom, cosmic connection. Come on. Thank you. Honey in the heart. Ciao.